You have an unresolved disappearance. You've tried billboards, flyers, psychics, private investigators with little or no progress. Likewise, the searches have failed. The police aren't responding the way they once did. Calls go unanswered. Emails go unanswered. Requests for information are met with, "It's still an ongoing investigation." After studying over 400 disappearances and interviewing nearly 1,000 family members, I've learned something important. Most families are more than capable of moving their investigations forward if they are given the right tools. I'm Ed Dunsel. For the past 10 years, I've analyzed missing persons cases from all over the world, identifying patterns that are often overlooked by others. My goal is to help you better understand what is likely happening in your case. Identify productive next steps. Avoid wasting time and money. And bring structure and clarity to an emotionally overwhelming situation. If you're looking for thoughtful, experienced analysis of your disappearance case, visit missingpersonsconsulting.com to learn more. Glynis Bernhard, LeTarte, Tammy Christie, Al Wharton, Charles Sorren, and Gerald Lancaster were all aviation co-workers from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. They had only known each other for a short time, and their ages ranged from 19 to 36. On March 31st, 1984, they left in a Cessna 402 airplane from Fort Lauderdale, destined for Bimini. They never arrived. They were never seen again. I'm Ed Dunsel, and this is episode 5 of Unfound's continuing coverage of disappearances off the Atlantic coast of Florida during the 1980s. Do I have a group of disappearances for you today? And new nuggets of unusual information continue to be found right up to the point I recorded this episode. In fact, I will go on record to say this: no matter what caused these disappearances, I think the history of some of these people need to be investigated further. And the guest and I do touch upon a few points concerning this during the interview. But even after the interview, I discovered new data on 2 of the missing people, and you will not believe it. Also, to add to the weird information for these disappearances, none of these people, not one, is listed on NamUs. In fact, I came upon these disappearances by accident, something that will get explained both during the interview and in my summation after. And now a summary of the case. Glynis Bernhard, who is the central figure for this episode, was a very popular girl from Ohio. She had a younger brother, Tab, but otherwise did not get along that well with her family. Because of this, Glynis could not wait to move to Florida with her friend Tammy, who also went missing on the flight. They planned to become flight attendants. In fact, there was a belief that they had gotten hired by Continental Airlines. Instead, they became secretaries at a charter company that flew people from Florida to the Bahamas and Caribbean. Everything seemed to be fine in Glynis's life. So, on March 31st, a Saturday of 1984, 6 employees of the company, 3 men and 3 women, boarded one of the charter planes headed for Bimini. The reason for this trip is still unclear. with everything from business to pleasure being explanations. What is clear, though, is that there was more than one pilot on the plane, so safety should not have been an issue. They took off. Accounts differ, but radar showed the plane getting up to a high altitude. Then at some point, the plane dropped at a very fast rate until it went off radar. There was no Mayday call. They never arrived in Bimini. The Coast Guard did searches for the plane and the people, including Glynis. They were never seen again. Glynis's brother Tab immediately went to Florida to see what he could find out. What he discovered was Glynis had been surrounded by suspicious people doing illegal things. Being 400 disappearances into Unfound's existence, it takes a lot to stun me. But these disappearances have challenged my thinking on coincidences and suspicious circumstances. Contemplate what unfound disappearances have already stunned you while you try to answer these 3 questions during the interview. Number 1, what if I were to tell you one of the people on the plane had gone missing before under similar circumstances? Number 2, what if I were to tell you a different person on the plane had a girlfriend go missing under similar circumstances? And number 3, what if I were to tell you in one of the obituaries for one of the missing people, it was said that this plane collided with another plane? Glynis's family never came to a firm theory on what happened to her and the other passengers. The guest for this episode is Glynis's sister-in-law, Tracy. Unfound News. I've started a new series on YouTube. It's called Your 2-Minute Disappearance Lesson. The first episode, Private Property. Please check it out at your earliest convenience. Next, John Lorden has made a video update on his cancer treatment. Please watch it on the Lorden Arts channel and continue sending him your best wishes. Finally, in regards to this Atlantic series, next week you will hear from the Coast Guard itself. I'm so happy to have on this episode of Unfound. I'm going to call her a friend and actually a former sister-in-law of Glynis Bernhard. Tracy, welcome to Unfound.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
And everybody, I want to remind everybody, this episode is a continuance of the series that I'm doing on disappearances that happened off the Atlantic coast of Florida during the 1980s. And quickly we'll get into why the disappearance of Glynis and these other people is unique compared to all the others that are being featured in this series. But Tracy, first of all, I think you're going to have to explain how you are connected to Glynis.
I'm connected to Glynis as a friend. I was a friend in high school.
Okay.
We were in Y teens together. We did things together. She was, of course, 3 years older than me. So I was a freshman. She was a senior. And I was also we played volleyball together. Mm-hmm. She was really cool, really fun. She did crazy things like wearing sunglasses at night and singing it and entertaining people. And she was just a beautiful girl.
Yeah.
Dark-haired, gorgeous, eyes to die for, that kind of thing. But I also was friends with her little brother, who was 1 year older than me. Like, I was a freshman, he was a sophomore. So I had a connection with them because of our community. And then we all lived our life, and I shouldn't say she didn't. Me and Tab, his baby brother,
yeah,
went and lived our life, got married, to other people, and were married for exactly 20 years to other people, and then we got divorced and ran into each other at Panera Bread, and then from there we had whatever, but that made me Glynis' sister-in-law, although Glynis was already gone at that time. And I got everything, all of the information, all the speculation, all the thoughts. I lived with all that. So, Tab has since passed away from a heart attack after we were together like 12 years. So I feel like I am, of course, the only one left that kind of knows the inside info, or should I say, the things that we, were worried and nervous. What the end of her, what happened with her life, that kind of stuff. I knew it all, and now I'm the only one left. Her only little brother has passed away. Her father just passed away the year after Tab. And his mother had passed away 6 years before he passed away. So I don't know. It's just a series of everybody's gone.
So let's just, what year did you and Tab get married?
We got married in 2011, but we were together living and merged our families in 2009.
Wow. Okay. So you didn't become a couple until like 15 years after the disappearance occurred.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But my understanding is even when you two got back together in 2009 and 2011, Glynis's disappearance was still a part of Tab's life. He was still very interested. In fact, dare I say, Tracy, maybe if he hadn't had a heart attack, I'm very sorry to hear that. If he had not had a heart attack 5 years ago, maybe it would be he I would be talking to today. Maybe.
You would absolutely be talking to him. And this would have probably been one of the most, thrilling things for him to have someone to discuss the details of this with, because, and sad as it is to say, honestly, three days before Tab passed away, he just kind of looked at me and he said, if I could just know, if I could have some information other than what's been put out there and what has been, he's like, he goes, I don't think I can rest. I need to know. This has been too long. And at that point, I can't remember if it was 30 years at that point. And he said, I need to know. And so strange that he passed away 3 days later. And I know it sounds weird in the ER identifying, what you do when somebody passes. I just put my hand on his arm and I said, now you know. Now you know. So like that was like a main thread of stuff that weaved through him. I mean, he wanted to know.
Right. Well, let's just talk about that before we go back. We all go back to 1984 and talk about what you remember from that time, being that you knew the Bernhard family, even though you were not married to Tab then. You didn't marry until many years later, but you knew Glynis. But can you talk about that time between you reconnecting with him in 2009 and his death? How often would Glynis, and of course these other people, we can't forget them, people who were on this plane, how often did Glynis's name come up, when you would talk to Tab and, when you would talk about this?
I would say, I'm interrupting, but say, Tab did not discuss Glynis with everyone. Not with, in fact, I can remember being out at the store running into Tammy Christie's brother, who is the other girl who disappeared with Glynis. We ran into him, and he kind of walked right up to Tab, and he put his hand out, and he said, we're brothers of this. We're brothers of this, or whatever. But Tab did not want to discuss that with him. He did not want to go into it. The only one he went all out telling was me. And that's just because, strangely enough, Tab and I had an extremely close close relationship. I know everybody, it's almost like known by the whole town that we are, that we were just these two connected souls. So he poured his heart out to me. And I asked his children, his biological children, I asked them, did he do this with your mom, with his ex-wife, with whom he was married for 20 years? Did he do this with? Oh, no, he never ever spoke of her with her. And of course, I'm meeting his children and getting to know his children when we were first getting together. And he pointed to his daughter, Tabitha. He pointed to his daughter and he just said, who do you see? And I said, I see Glynis. Wow. It's totally Glynis. I said all the way, her entire shape, her hair, everything, So, yeah, and it was weird that he did that with me. Like, who is that? Who do you see? And I said, I see Glynis, so.
Did you, once again, I know this, you're married couple, if you can say, how much did, between you during those, I guess, approximately 12, 13 years maybe, you had together before he died of a heart attack, how much did Glynis's name come up between you two?
Very often.
Okay.
Very often. I went and had, like, pictures. Like, Ted had a lot of stuff, but he never, whatever. I went and had pictures made and displayed them, and then sometimes we would talk just about, like, not non-interesting family things. Like, I knew that Tab's family during that time did not have a lot of, I mean, his mom was single, did not have a lot of resources or whatever. And so I'd say, I'd look at these pictures and I'd say, I can't believe your mother made this dress, your mother made your, cummerbund for your, tuxedo. And we just he just talked about, it didn't matter what Glynis wore, she looks beautiful. It was just like, we talked about Glynis a lot. He told me he dreamed about her. He told me just any thought that would come across his mind, he would bring it up. And we openly said her name. It wasn't like we were scared to say her name because that it made him so sad. Talking about her made him happy. And she was, like a second mother to him. Although she was only 2 years older than him, she babied him. She cared for him deeply. Like I said, they didn't have many resources. So there were times when Tab was hungry and she would just invent something to make for him to eat. She cuddled him. He had a great kind of an anxiety and fear as a little kid after his dad left, and his mom had remarried a couple of some shady characters, and he was afraid, and she would like cuddle him and keep him safe. And Glynis was somebody he adored, adored. And it's a crying shame because I keep wondering what they would have been like at both of them when they were in their 50s, just having relationships and stuff. But yeah.
Okay.
All
right, and you said
she was 19 and she was 19 and she was 19 and he was 18, or like more like 17. But I'm just saying, you know what that's like. It's so sad. It's so sad. He just wandered. It was like he was wandering through the wilderness. And Tab did a thing. The story, of course. Maybe I'm talking this out of order.
No, go ahead. Keep going, please.
But the story hit our town. You have two of the very popular, prominent girls from a very good school that disappear, and they disappear, and the whole town, all of our newspapers, it's on the news. They don't know what happened. They are searching. They don't know, and it was horrible. And Tab was a senior in school, and he couldn't take it. Like, he just had these moments where he said as he walked down the hallway, everybody was like, wonder what happened to, Glynis, wonder what happened to Tammy, wonder. And he said he couldn't take it. So he decided to walk out. He decided he was, just weeks from graduating, just a few weeks from graduating. And he did. He walked down that hallway and he went out that door, out the side door, and was never coming back. And our principal went after him, and he said, you don't have to do another thing. You're going to graduate. Everything's fine. Just go, do whatever, He just gave them the freedom to grieve, and nobody understood it, and the whole world was talking about it. But here's this kid who absolutely, and he's the one that received the call. He was the one. It was very early in the morning, and it was very early in the morning when they called to say that, they don't know what happened to the plane. And Tab was the first one of his whole family to know, and he had to get his mother, and his mother, was not, she wasn't, like some single moms are like rocks. She wasn't a rock. She was, mush.
Okay.
Mush. So, yeah.
Right. Well,
and then subsequently ended up with drug and alcohol problems because her daughter she had pictures, she had stuff, she had candles burning, she had everything going on all over the place. And had no idea where her daughter was her, I know what it's like. I got a daughter too. It's the same thing. I probably would not have whatever, but she did not handle it well. And on top of that, I don't know, things are so different now the way they are then. They immediately admitted Tab's mom into the hospital, into what would be, your psych.
Right.
Like your psych unit. So she was that lost. I went and I, at 17 years old or 16 years old, however I went and visited her because my mother worked at that hospital. My mom was an RN. I went to that hospital and visited Tab's mother in the psych ward and hugged her and loved her,
Okay. Let's we're probably going to touch upon that some more in a bit. But let's just go back to talking about Glynis. You personally knew her, even though, of course, you knew her younger brother, who you ended up marrying. We should state that is Glynis's only sibling was Tab.
Yeah, she has 3 half brothers from her father. Okay. He had left though the picture for quite a long time.
Okay.
And he was with, another lady. He left because of her. He went with her. Okay. And so then he had 3 boys with her. But I don't think any of them, maybe the very oldest one only knows who Glynis is, but they have no relationship, didn't know her. You know what I mean?
Okay.
They only had any information that, their dad or Tab would give them,
Okay. But you did know Glynis, so once again, just maybe tell the listeners a little bit about her. Once again, you said that, you personally knew her, even though she was a few years older. What can you say?
What can I say? I don't even want to say that. Her and her brother both had unique teeth. They were very straight looking or whatever, but she smiled this smile. Yeah. She smiled this smile just all the time. And it was her goodness. She just had goodness. And so many people loved her, but she could be in between. I don't know how I would say this. She could be the best girl, the good girl, but she could hang with the worst of people and still, the worst ones. And she was just everybody had a relationship with her. They did. That's why I feel that I had a relationship with her, because I was nervous and I was scared. I'm a freshman and I'm doing some things in like volleyball and Y teams I was doing with those who were in the senior class. When you're a freshman, you're self-conscious. You don't know your place. You don't know it. She made it so, like, she was just part of my life. She just, whatever. And like I said, she's like, when you're a teenager, you ride on those buses and you go to games or you go to things. She just sang loud, talked loud. She was the center. It was like the center, the senior who all of us just sat there and watched her. And she was so cool. You wanted to be her. It was crazy. And, Tammy was beautiful and fun and everything, and like a smiler. And it's so weird how those two girls, they captured different audiences though, because Tammy, was, like homecoming queen and all that kind of stuff. Glynis was hardcore fun, just the fun girl,
Okay. Did you know, I should ask, you knew Tammy too. Of course, Tammy went missing on this flight as well. You knew Tammy as well?
Yes.
You did. Okay, fantastic.
Not as much as I knew Glynis.
Right.
Okay. But, I mean, maybe I feel like I know Glynis more because of her. I've been so involved with the family.
Right, of course. That would make sense. Okay, so you knew Tammy too.
They did not recover well. Like, Tammy's family, again, they were a mess. Tammy's family went, and we'll talk about that later, I suppose, but went the extra mile to find whatever they could find. They had more money, they had more resources, they had things. So they tried their best to figure it out.
Right, okay. Let's move on to this. Of course, being that you knew Glynis, you knew the family. Of course, like you said, maybe to a little bit of a lesser extent, you knew Tammy, and they went to Florida together. What was your understanding, maybe if you even knew it at the time, or what was the general understanding of course, Glynis is from Ohio. What was the intention of her going to Florida? And my understanding is she went to Florida not long after she graduated high school. What was known about that?
I mean, I have thought. I mean, I know. I shouldn't say. I mean, I know, and it's just family stuff. But I mean, Glynis had a stepfather that she was terrified of, did not like.
Okay.
And she left Mom's house and went down the street and moved in with their grandma and grandpa, and was staying there. And just, what happened was she just didn't have a place. She wanted something more in life, and she came from kind of a bit of abuse with his stepfather, and then went and camped out and hid in the safety of her grandparents, and then they must have just came up with the idea, because Tammy Christie could have been anything in our town. I mean, so many people. I mean, she was very popular too. Mm-hmm. She could have been anything, but I'm thinking that whatever they came up with was, like, for sure, like, Tammy was wanting to be a stewardess, like the glamour of being like a stewardess. And I don't think that's what Glynis was doing. I mean, if she was going to work at a desk and do a ticket thing, but they really were going, maybe they got recruited or something, but they went to do something with air. with air
aviation.
What? Yeah, something. And they had another friend, and I think I told you this. They had another friend who was going to do it too.
Right.
But strangely enough, I don't know. She kind of backed up, but she ended up getting married right away and whatever, and she's still married to that guy. But so she stayed home. She just did not go. So.
Okay.
And what's so weird is I did see a couple pictures, and it's the day they were moving. It's the truck packed up, and people were hugging and saying goodbye to them, and off they went. And so.
Wow! If you have those pictures anywhere, I'd love to see them. If you could send them to me.
Yeah, I don't. I
if you
gotta
could send
find
them to
where
me
they
through
are.
Messenger or through texting or whatever, I'd love to see that.
Yeah, but not to say, but how, I don't want to say, but how, like, that would have been, like, 83, 84.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
The picture, the Polaroids are weird to see.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're just like that foggy look, nothing's really clear.
Yeah, it's not 4K. It's not 4K 2026, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
You can make it. Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, I'd still, I mean, I'm 55 years old. I remember the 80s very well. I remember that technology. But if you're saying you have a picture of Tammy and Glynis, like, getting prepared to leave and everything, I mean, that is something that I think everybody would like to see. I didn't even know that you had that.
It's out. It was out. Yeah, it was outside. It was just outside. People around, and not a posed picture or anything. Just people walking around a truck. I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. So she graduated high school in 83?
She graduated in 82.
1982. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And when, if you can remember, once again, not exactly, I realize that, she's not your sister, but still. Yeah. When did she and Tammy move to Florida? Do you remember? Sometime in 83. Of course, she went missing on March 31st of 84.
She went missing in 84. They moved in 83.
Okay. All right.
Because they were down there. I think they were down there in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
In the fall
of 83.
Yeah. Okay. And here's the thing: the circumstances in which they were involved with this plane.
Yeah.
Now since I talked to you, I don't know if we've had the story actually correct all this lifetime.
We'll get to that.
But
sure, we'll get to that.
Yeah, but my thing is she was in 84. She was turning 20. Mm-hmm. And so she died the day before. I guess the day before her, or the disappearance occurred the day before her birthday.
Her birthday was April 1st.
30th.
Oh, okay.
March,
I think they went missing on a Saturday, which would have been March 31st of 1984.
So I think her birthday was the 30th.
All right, so the day after her birthday, maybe.
Yeah, or else on her birthday. I know that the trip from,
I'll check that out.
Just what we were told, and my husband talked to her. Mm-hmm. My husband talked to her the day before her birthday, so maybe it wasn't.
Okay. So maybe her birthday was the 30th. But my husband
talked to her the day before her birthday, and he was wishing her a happy birthday, and she was telling him that they were taking a trip. Wow. And that was going to be a celebratory thing for her birthday because they were going a day early, just so they could have their own time together. That's what she told him, so that they could have their own time and not have to do work. They were being allowed to take this plane a day early, and that's what. Okay. And that's all I know is that I thought she was having a day in Bimini for her birthday, and then they were supposed to do other things.
All right, we'll get to that, Tracy. What was the perception of what she and this other young woman were doing once they got to Florida. They were working in aviation somehow, right? That was the perception.
Mm-hmm. And I only have, and also my husband's mother, when she died, she was in a very dementia state. But she would tell me things all the time.
All I'm asking right now is, what was the perception of what she was doing in Florida in 1983 and 84?
Oh, just total aviation. I think she may have had a boyfriend. And yes,
okay.
They were just working. Like, that's all we heard about, was that they were working. And back here in Ohio, we all thought it was, fancy, glamorous. We just thought it was like, wow, what a life they're living.
Yeah. Down there near Miami, near the beach, working in aviation. I guess it does sound kind of glamorous, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Once they moved to Florida, did either of them ever come back to Ohio to visit? Do you know?
No. I'm pretty sure not.
Okay.
I'm pretty certain not.
Okay, that's fine. Any idea that anybody, once again at the time in 83, 84, as best as you can tell, anybody worried about either of them? That, maybe they were getting mixed up in something they shouldn't have been? Anybody worried about the decisions they were making?
No one was doing that, but I will tell you, as telling you how my husband graduated, after all the events happened.
Yeah. All I'm asking you is, did anybody before she went missing, was anybody concerned about what she was doing down there, or did everything just seem like everything was fine?
No. There was no concern until later.
Okay. Great. Okay, so
as
nothing like,
comes.
she's in a little over her head down there. She's hurting for money. She can't find a job. She's mixed up with the wrong people. Nothing like that. Nothing like that.
No.
Okay, good. All right, so he's already stated that it seems her birthday was sometime around...
I'm sorry. I could have been more precise about that. I mean...
That's all right. Don't worry about it, Tracy. That's totally fine. Totally fine. But you did say the disappearance was sometime around her birthday, and that her brother Tab did talk to her somewhere around that time.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, he talked to her. He told me the day before her birthday.
All right. And the understanding was that this trip, that, she did talk about this trip, and the perception is they were going, this group of people were going to fly out to the Bahamas to celebrate her birthday.
Yes, she said they were going from Fort Lauderdale to Bimini, and it was going to be three pilots and 3 people, like 3 girls.
Okay.
I mean, that's the information she gave, and what my husband has always
said.
Thought.
When you've talked about him, of course, you were married to him for all those years, 11, 12 years together with him, and that was his understanding when you two would talk about it.
Yes.
Okay. How did you find out that she went missing?
How did I find out?
Yeah, how did you find out? Do you remember the day? Is it that etched in your mind?
I found out. It was a bomb. It was everywhere in a minute. And also, sounds strange, my very, very best friend in high school also had dated Tab, and she still was very, very attracted to Tab. And we immediately went to Tab's house, to the mother's house. So I am, I don't know what I'm following along. I'm following along with my best friend who wants all the information about what just happened to Glynis. It did hit immediately. It was like a rumor mill that just went just right through our school in 1 minute. It would be the following day. It just went like a rumor mill everywhere. And then it was, like I said, the newspapers. Oh my gosh. The newspapers were just like, there's no answer, there's no nothing, but guess what? Two people from here are missing.
Yeah, from that area of Ohio. Of course, we have to remember there were 7 people total that went missing, 4 men and 3 women. And we're going to talk a little bit about them in a bit, but just we have to understand only 2 of them were from Ohio, and it's the 2 women, of course, Glynis and her friend that we're talking about here.
Right.
But how did you personally find out? Did you personally get a call, or how did that happen?
I didn't get a call. I think, I know it was the next day, but my best friend's the one that came in with all the info. She knew exactly that the plane, they were on a plane, the plane went down or something, and they are gone, and they are searching for them. So my best friend knew that. And that is how, like, any sort of details at that very time that's how I got them from her.
Okay, and that's really when it comes to Ohio, that's pretty much what it was. It was stuff in the newspaper. You're just finding your information out that way.
Right.
Okay.
It's it's kind of crazy to think of how technology is today and social media. This could have. I mean, back then, if this would have happened now, everything would be known.
It would certainly be known. You're right. Even though it happened all those miles away and everything, it would be like it happened right down the street.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So you find out, and at that time, I mean, were you close enough? Did you ever speak to anybody in Glynis's family at the time in 1984? I realize you were very young. You might be 16 years old or something. Did you, even though you knew Tab, did you talk about it, being that he was a year older than you, or were these conversations not had until years later?
No, I at school, I told him I was sorry. But this, again, is something that was contentious to Tab. He didn't like everybody talking about it because he was devastated. I think he didn't want sorry, and I don't think, there's, like, he always said that. I walked around not knowing anything. She's gone, and and that's it. He said, and I didn't want, and he goes, it was like a great story. Everybody's telling the story of my sister. And he said, I didn't want it. I didn't want that. And he said, that's when he said he couldn't take it anymore. It was just so much talking about this story, this amazing story that they're gone.
Yeah. And it's not an amazing story. It's not. It's a tragedy, right?
It is.
Right?
And Tab, did not want to accept that it was a tragedy. Yeah, and it's kind of weird because I asked him about that, did you ever think she would come back? Did you ever think you'd hear from her? And he said, Tracy, honestly, 25 years, and I still thought there's got to be a chance that if she got, whatever, traded into slavery or something, like she's going to call one day when it's all over, when her bondage and imprisonment is over, they were going to get the call, from her. And then it was strange because then just before Tab died, when he was saying it's been 35 years, right? He goes, that call will never come. That call will never come because she never would go this long without communicating. She would not. So how weird and strange to be torn all the time, just to be torn without knowing. And Tammy Christie's family did the very same thing. They always held. Everybody was always holding out, but they all had to have their memorial services. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Okay. All right, so the disappearance happens, and everybody should know, of course, before, as everybody now knows, the format of Unfound by now, I will have gone over the particulars of the flight and everything before this interview actually plays in the episode. So we'll just move on to this. You had mentioned before, and I want to talk about that now. Tab actually, I guess he would have been very young at the time. He actually went down there and lived down here. I live in Florida. He actually moved down here for a year to try to figure out what happened, right?
Yes, and he didn't do a very good job at being a detective.
Well, let's not. Well, you know what, Tracy? Let's not be too hard on him. This is not easy work, even in 2026.
No, but then this is something that him and I talked about, because he said, Tracy, I don't know what I was thinking. I went all the way down there. I'm going to do this stuff. He goes, I had to work 8 hours a day so that I could provide myself with a living. Yeah. And he goes, I'm young and I have no experience. But when he got down there, I don't know how to say this, but I'm pretty sure there was a boyfriend that Glynis had, and he took Tab in, helped him get a job, and then that's how, and then those characters in that apartment that's where Tab said, oh my gosh, I have no idea the kind of people my sister were involved with, because these guys, they were very drug oriented. They were, just partying, druggy, whatever. And so then Tab couldn't take that. So he moved into a camper right off site of where he was working. The owner or whatever, boss or whatever, let him move in there. He got the air conditioning working, and he even did so much as there was a junky old car there that was not running. He said, if you can get that car running, I'll sign the title over to you or whatever. That's all that happened. Tab had to distance himself from these people that were not, they were shady.
Yeah.
They were shady, so I don't know.
So I just need to understand that. Did you know this back in 84, 85, 86? Or did you not find out about how shady these people were until you got reconnected with Tab in 2009?
Yes, no, I didn't know until 2009.
Okay, all right, so he's recounting all of this. He's, being that you had gone your separate ways for a while, you get back together, and then, he's telling you everything he did back in 84, 85 to try to figure out what happened to Glynis. And this was one of the stories. He comes down here to Florida, and he finds out that his sister was hanging out around some really not so good people.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes, I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was, and I don't know if I don't think Tammy had that kind of involvement.
Okay.
What's that?
All right. Do you happen to know if anybody in her family went down to Florida and hung out here for a while to try to figure out what happened?
Yes, they did. They went. No one from Tab's family went, but yes, the Christies went. And I do not know how many times or whatever, but I know that was a very important thing for them to do. That they were trying to find the answers, and they were trying to find the plane.
Yeah. Okay. So Tab comes down here for a year, and I guess what you're saying, and we're gonna, once again, we need to give Tab a huge break on this, because this is all very, very difficult. Even for myself, who's been doing this for 10 years, that he didn't make much headway, I guess, in understanding, getting to the bottom of it.
And he was only like 18.
Right.
So yes.
Okay.
I think he asked the questions that he could ask, and then did not know where to go from there.
Okay. All right. So and
he came back home. He did not survive that very well. So and he came back home.
Okay. So he's down there. He sees what's going on. He comes back, and so let's move on to this. Of course, these rest of these people, they go up in this plane. The plane never reaches its location, and we'll move on to this. Was Tab ever able to figure out the connection between Glynis and these guys who, in my estimation, were quite a bit older than she was. Al Wharton and the rest of them. What was the connection? Did they all work together or something?
It's so shocking because you gave other information and you have documentation.
I do.
And so I know that the only thing Tab knew was there was 3 pilots and 3 girls. Okay. And they were doing something. And then Tab would say, I believe they either thought they could do like a drug thing. They were doing a drug thing.
Okay.
And like he goes, there's so many little, and that's what he would tell me, there's so many little islands down there they could have just landed to get that, whatever they were going to accomplish, get that done, then go to Bimini or whatever. But then he also said, what if they landed and it went wrong and then they took the girls, into sex slavery. He said, I did read up on that, and that was a big thing even in the 80s. So yeah, he just had no clue. He had no idea what the story was, and he had no idea what was the cause of her demise, like what caused this whole thing to go downhill. And then he did blame what he called the 3 pilots, that they are the ones, and you're right, because they were older, he blamed them, like they're the ones that were doing this, and the girls were going along for a ride to go have a day on the beach. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let's move on to this. All right, so this connection, maybe they were working together, but like we said earlier, the perception maybe was that Glynis and the other woman that went down there, maybe they were working for an airline or something, but I guess they were working for an airline, but it wasn't like a big commercial airline like we understand today, like Southwest or anything like that, right?
Right.
It was for a little charter airline or something. Okay.
There's such a part of me that wonders, is there some connection between this small airline and Continental? Because it seemed to me that even Tab said, my mom got a settlement from Continental, but that stepdad took it. Like he goes, that stepdad took it, and so mom never even got to invest or do something with it, Right. So like, I don't know if these are just like stories that they told each other and they believed them, or
you know
what I mean?
Well, that happens. I certainly, as I've learned after 10 years, 400 disappearances covered, Tracy, is that sometimes facts become legend, facts become rumors, and then on the other hand, rumors become facts. That's very common. Things that you should believe, people start to doubt, and then things people shouldn't believe, people start to believe that those items. Very common. Very common.
And then you take into account that this is 1984. How do you know anything,
right.
like fully concrete about this whole thing?
Right.
And just saying, if my daughter were to disappear tomorrow, I would be where that's at, what's happening. I would know. Like, they didn't even go.
Yeah.
And try to find. So who knows what to believe, I guess. I don't know.
Yep. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to sort through all of this. Now, in talking to you, of course, the first time we spoke, you did have an idea about what they said happened as far as the plane taking off and it reaching a certain altitude. What has been your understanding about the flight since Tab began to fill you in on this disappearance?
Of course, no actual altitude numbers were known. I mean, you have the documents with that, but I do know that Tab told me the plane left Fort Lauderdale, and it went, and it was getting close to Bimini, but I thought, he said on radar it still looked 35 or 40 miles from where it should be, and it was up high. He did tell me that, and then it dropped all the way down. But he said there was some sort of, they always, I'm not kidding, his mom, his dad, everybody has said something about the hovering, that it came so far down and it looked like it hovered, but maybe it was just, I always thought maybe you guys are mixed up and it was just at the bottom of the radar. You know what I mean? And it looked like it was hovering. I don't know, but they said it hovered and then disappeared.
Right.
And they said where it was. So Tab told me they said it was here, 35 miles from whatever, and somebody on Bimini saw a flash of fire go down, and where this was like 19 miles. So like, I don't know, like it's all their numbers. Nobody's numbers match up. Not radar numbers, not, eyewitness numbers or whatever. But I mean, Tab also told me that the waters around Bimini are only 19 feet deep. So I don't know if that's true either, but he would say that to me. They're only 19 feet deep. You would think they could find any plane in 19 feet of water. You know what I mean?
You'd think, but it's a big area out there. Big area, it's big area. And of course, with eyewitness statements, as we've learned the hard way the last 10 years, eyewitness statements, frankly, rarely are true. I'm not saying they can't be true, but they're just not, you wouldn't want to put any money on them being true. So we have to figure that into the calculations. I should ask you, while Tab was down in Florida, did he ever go out to Bimini? Did he ever go out? No. Did he ever go out there to kind of look around, question people? Do you know?
No, and I'm kind of book smart, like, with my degrees and everything, and Tab was not like that. I was like, why, why didn't you go? Like, why? So then, of course, before he died, he's like, so I think we should start taking our vacations as an okay. Are you there?
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, please.
Like as an exploration. Let's start doing our vacations as an exploration and go find it. We're getting older. We're going to be, retiring and doing that. We could maybe find her, or find what it was that happened. But once Tab died, there was nobody left. Yeah. I'm the only one who knows any of the information, so it is weird. So strange to talk to you today, because it's like, I have no one to tell. Guess what?
There is somebody to tell. That's me. Yeah, there is somebody to tell. And somebody who knows a lot about disappearances and is coincidentally covering disappearances specifically in that area of the earth. Who would have thunk it?
I know.
Who would have thunk it, of
all
course.
The whole, and of course, here's a couple things that would happen. Tab and I, you know how you're watching, I don't know, TLC or whatever these channels are on TV. They would have Bermuda Triangle, Bermuda Triangle things. And so we would spend the evening watching this because, Tab wanted to see if there was information he didn't quite understand about the Bermuda Triangle or, whatever. Because he's like, I'm so sick of everybody just saying they went down in the Bermuda Triangle and that's what happened. And he goes, and we don't even know how it went down.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. All right. So, but we also have to understand the other family involved in this that you knew. Of course, this other young woman who is missing from Ohio, Glynis's friend, her family was very involved in this as well, but like you said, we're not sure if anybody went down there and stayed for a year. My understanding is this other woman also had a brother, just like Glynis had Tab. Yeah. This other woman had a brother, but he is deceased now as well.
Yeah, he passed away. Wow. But I do think, I think there were many, I think they did multiple trips. I think they did multiple trips to try to find anything. I mean, I don't know if they didn't stay for a year, but I think they did multiple trips.
Okay. All right, so we have this situation, Glynis, and of course this other young woman. And what is her name again? That went with Tammy. Went down to Florida. They were friends, thought they were going to get into aviation. I guess they were in aviation. They did work for this little charter company. Maybe it was connected to Continental Airlines. Continental isn't around anymore, not in 2026, but certainly popular at the time. Maybe they have some sort of agreement with Continental Airlines. That happens. But they get up in this plane, maybe because of Glynis's birthday. But we'll get into that in a bit about the varying stories of why this trip was even happening. And this Cessna takes off. There's 7 people in it. This Cessna 401 or 402 could hold like 8 to 10 people. It gets up there, and then at some point, it descends from a great altitude, never seen again.
Yes.
That's pretty much what happened. And of course, there were searches done, but I don't have any of the paperwork on any of that. But I know searches were surely done to try to find them.
Yeah, I heard they had grids. Yeah, I did hear that.
The grid
that was, or that's something I know from a long time ago in the newspaper or something, that they were doing grids.
Okay. Now, everybody should know, by the way, if I haven't said this yet, we're doing this interview on June 8th. Of 2026. Now, you did mention this other woman who did not go, and we've talked about maybe you can reach out to her. I'm guessing that's been unsuccessful, and that's totally fine. But she was supposed to go to Florida with Glynis and Tammy, but did not go, correct? There was a third woman involved in this, but she didn't end up going.
Yeah. And something I just remembered was that Glynis's purse was in her home. Mm-hmm. So that is something that I had a question about. Why would she leave her purse and go on a plane?
That's something Tab told you all those years later?
No, I actually had the purse in my possession. I went through it. Yes, it was kept in Tab. When Tab's mom died, like the 6 years before Tab did, we went to the house and I got Glynis's purse out of the closet that they found, and there were cards in it and letters from a letter from that Jody, all wishing her a happy birthday. So that she had picked up her mail, so her mail was in the purse, and so was her license, pictures and whatnot, and her lip gloss, whatever. Everything was in there, but I never could understand if she is an employee of the airline, why she's on a plane and her ID and everything is in this purse. And so with all her birthday cards,
Tracy, we need to understand this. So what you're saying is that when Tab went to Florida and went to her place, her purse was there, and then he brought it back to Ohio?
Right.
Okay. Just want to make sure we understand that. Okay. So I agree with you. That's hard to understand. You'd think that she would bring her ID or whatever with her. You'd think you'd need that if you're going. Of course, Bimini is a different country. It's not part of the United States. So yeah, I agree with you.
Maybe she had something with her for ID, or we don't know what they were doing. Why she's leaving her purse and her belongings and her stuff.
Yeah. Maybe she didn't want to carry a lot of stuff, and maybe she had gotten a passport once she moved to Florida.
Yeah, maybe.
It could be.
Or maybe she had to with the air work.
Yeah, you're not going to get in. If they were going to Bimini, that's a hard thing to understand. You can't get in. You couldn't get into that country without ID. Can't do that.
Yeah.
All right, so that does bring into question the reason for the trip, and maybe we should get into some of those things right now. Now, I'm just going to go through some things now with Tracy that she already knows, but she did not know these things before I brought them to her attention within the last couple weeks. Do you remember? I'll ask you, but I know we've had this conversation before, Tracy, but I'm going to ask you again. Before this ever happened, Al Wharton was a guy who went missing with Glynis on this plane. But you didn't know a lot about him before I had some things to tell you about him, did you?
No, didn't know anything.
All right, so
I think I Googled or whatever you told me to do.
Yeah, and I sent you some newspaper clippings from back then, about him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so everybody should know Al Wharton is the big question mark, I think, in this entire disappearance. He was a disgraced Miami cop. In 1981, he was caught selling cocaine to an undercover cop, and thus Al Wharton got fired. But he was part of the aerial unit for the Miami Police Department, I guess maybe flying light propeller planes or helicopters or something. Well, he did retain his pilot's license. Well, he was one of the people on this plane. Yeah. And it is believed that he was still in the drug business. His name's Al Wharton, Wharton, prominently public information. You can find it on newspapers.com. Now, the weird part is that his girlfriend in 1981, whose name was Diane Jenkins, that wasn't her real name, though. Her real name was Diane Kaywood, Caywood. She went missing on a flight to the Bahamas as well. She was by herself in 1981 in the same type of plane that Glynis and Al were in, a Cessna 401 or 402, same type of plane. She was flying to the Bahamas. She got close to the Bahamas, sent out a distress call. She was never seen again. But it is believed that Diane Jenkins, and you can find her on the NamUs database, it is believed that she was doing a drug run, that she was flying out there to pick up drugs and bring them back to Florida. So here we have 3 years later, her boyfriend, she's gone. Her boyfriend is now on a plane. He goes missing with Glynis and these other people under the same exact circumstances. This is not something that was known. This is not something that was known by you until I told you, right, Tracy?
Not at all.
Wow. And this is not something that ever came up between you and Tab all the years that you knew each other?
No. And I feel, of course, I feel for Tab now because I'm like, this is the information that he would have been so interested to have.
Yeah, and the thing is, it was out there. It's just you have to have like a newspapers.com account to go back to the 1980s and poke around a little bit on old news articles. And in fact, Al Wharton's picture is there. It talks about how he's a disgraced cop. It talks about Diane Jenkins. It's all there. But once again, you'd have to have a newspapers.com account to access it. But I'm glad I've put that, in your hands now. At least you know now, Tracy, given that I sent you that information. So there is that part of this case where what are the odds that a woman goes missing in 1981 in the same type of plane 3 years later, her boyfriend also goes missing in the same type of plane, basically on kind of the same route. Of course, he was not alone. So there's that. Also, as I brought up to you, Tracy, started trying to learn as much as I could about Cessna 402s, and they're a propeller plane that have two propellers, one on each wing, and they hold like 10 people. Is that they do have an altitude. They can go up to 20-some thousand feet. They can do that. But you need oxygen to do that because of over about 8,000 feet, it becomes hard to breathe, for humans to breathe. Your understanding, at least what you told me, Tracy, is that you believe that the plane, at least the way Tab thought of it, and what he told you, is that the plane was pretty high up in altitude, right?
Yes, and I think I know it's been documented on some of those, it was just those oddity type websites, but they said 35,000.
Yeah, no, that couldn't have been. Yeah, that couldn't have been because the plane max ceiling is maybe around 26,000 feet. Probably lower than that when you have that many people on it.
Okay.
So, but the understanding all these years is that the plane, whether it was they get the altitude wrong or not, that the plane was at a considerable altitude.
Right. Tabloid said it was high, very high, maybe too high.
Okay. And so everybody, kind of the lay people out there that don't know anything about flying. For example, if you're in a commercial jet and they fly, let's just say at 35,000 feet, well, the interior of a commercial jet is pressurized to about 8,000 feet. People can easily breathe, and that's why everybody doesn't pass out once you get up to 35,000 feet, because it's still 8,000 feet inside the plane, which is sealed. Well, these Cessnas, they don't have that ability. The plane can fly that high, but the people inside would have to use supplemental oxygen if you're going to be up there for any amount of time. And see, this is my concern for this disappearance. Did everybody on board realize that? That's where I'm going with this, Tracy.
I know.
Yeah.
I know some of the documents that I've read, and like I said, I have just a couple of obscure things that I was able to find when you are Googling Glynis and Tammy and everything. But it said it dropped immediately to 900 feet. I mean, so maybe.
Yeah, well, 900 feet, everybody
maybe they were all unconscious. I don't know.
It could be. It's a possibility. I don't know if there are any facts to support that, but if you're telling me that the understanding was that the plane was at a pretty high altitude, it could have been. It could have been at 20-some thousand feet. But if you're going to do that, everybody on board needs supplemental oxygen or everybody is going to pass out.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, yes, and we've had, of course, very famously Payne Stewart, a well-known golfer. He died.
Yes.
Are you familiar with that case, Tracy?
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened with him, is that, he's in a private jet. They take off here from Florida. I think they were going to Texas, and they get up to a high altitude. Well, it turns out that the jet had a leak, they believe. And all the pressurized air leaked out of the jet. Everybody went unconscious, and the plane crashed. And there was also a well-known commercial jet over in Europe where that exact same thing happened. It was a Helios, a Greek airline, where a 737 lost pressurization. Everybody on the board passed out, and it crashed. I don't know, this is something that comes to mind for Glynis's and all of their disappearances and why it's believed that this plane crashed. Maybe it didn't crash. But it's something that's on my mind, and that's why I passed it along to you, Tracy.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Now, as far as what did Tab think they were doing? Glynis, Tammy, all these other people, maybe he didn't know their names. Why did he think that they were going and taking this trip? What was his idea?
Yeah, he thought what his sister told him when he called her for her birthday.
Yeah.
He thought that it was just what a great opportunity, because we have the involvement with the airline. We get to go down a day early, because there was work to be done. Tab told me that there were passengers, travelers that needed to come back to Fort Lauderdale. But so they got to go down a day before, and they were going to spend the whole day in Bimini for Glynis's birthday, celebrating her birthday. And then the next day they would fly these travelers back. That is the story that the whole family has been told or knows. Like, whatever, that's the repeated story. Okay.
And it should be known, it does seem that this business was reputable. I don't think it's around to this day. I'm not throwing in any allegations at the company at the time or anything. It very well, could be that it was a real charter company. But what I would say, my impression is that when you're taking one of these Cessnas that can only hold 10 people and you have 7 people in it, Are they really bringing people back? I mean, I guess there's room left, but is this the most efficient use of company, gas? Planes are not efficient, and gas is not cheap for a plane and everything else. It seems unlikely that this was a trip to pick people up, but what do you think?
Yeah, like ever since I started talking to you, strangely enough, I think Tab is the one who even said the plane was meant to hold 13 people. Like, that's what he thinks. That's what he thought. Okay. It was meant to hold 13 people, so he thought it made sense. Plus, we've always thought it was 6 people. I don't know. We always thought it was 6 people on there, the 3 guys and the 3 girls. And I remember asking Tab, I mean, was this like, were these people all hooked up, like 3 guys, 3 girls, and they're going to spend the day in Bimini, and then they're going to bring the travelers back? I had no idea.
Right.
It's just this repeated story, and I think you might be right that there's a point where the rumors or the thoughts just become the facts. We've got decades here. It's not, nobody pursued to know the very truth. Mm-hmm. Once you started talking to me, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Everybody's had this story wrong ever since the beginning, from the altitude to the thing and I think, didn't you say another one of the gentlemen was also a disgrace, like Fort Lauderdale?
No, I didn't. I just know I've really not looked into Charles Sorren and Gerald Lancaster that much. But L. Wharton was the one who jumped out. I forget how I happened upon him. I don't know. I think the way that happened was that I was looking up things with Diane Jenkins, and then his name popped up in connection to this other disappearance. I think I came across this entire disappearance by accident because, Glynis and the rest of them, they aren't on any federal database. They're not on the Charlie Project. It's almost like the disappearance didn't happen.
And we've always known that. Yeah. I mean, Tab and I have talked about that. We had talked about that extensively. It's like, why are all these people's names, and why does everybody know exactly who disappeared when? But we can't find, you can't find Glynis and you can't find Tammy, but you can on these weird sites. But it's like those sites kind of disappear, or they get so old they go away.
Right.
So
right. And we should note. Maybe I got the number wrong here. I had it 7 in my notes. Maybe it is only 6. I can correct that. That's no problem. But let's just, I'll just go through the names officially, although I will have named them before we started this interview. Let's go through them again. Charles Sorren was the pilot. He was considered to be the pilot, even though L. Wharton had a license, I think, as well. There was a Gerald Lancaster, who was 30 years old. And LeTarte, LeTarte, 25 years old. Glynis Bernhard, 19 years old. L. Wharton, I think he was into his 30s. And then there was Tammy Christie, of course, 20. But what's interesting in this article is that even though Glynis and Tammy were friends, they moved to Florida together. According to this article, they were not living together at the time. Glynis was living in Fort Lauderdale, but Tammy was living in Davie, Florida.
And that's the part that I was telling you about.
Yeah.
That makes me think that when Tab went down there, I was greeted by these roommates and taken in. Those are the people that Glynis hung out with. Yeah. And I told you I didn't think Tammy would hang out with, shady type of people like that. So maybe Glynis and her are living a little bit apart. I mean, working. They didn't do the same job either. So it's like maybe they just were still remaining friends, but just not in quite the association that they were.
Okay. All right, so we have these people, and I will correct it. I've been saying 7, it'll be 6. I'll be able to edit that. But these 3 men, 3 women who go missing, not documented anywhere. Even myself, who knows a lot about disappearances, came across their disappearances by accident, and that's the way I was able to track down Tracy, of course, once married to Glynis's younger brother, Tab. What would you say? Would you say that, of course, you were around Tab from 2009 until he died of a heart attack? You even said 3 days before he died, he was talking about this. Would you say he was tormented by this, Tracy?
Yep. Do you know, you just said it, he said that exact word.
Tormented. He
said that word. He said that right before he died. He said, I am tormented.
Yeah.
And it made me, it broke my heart. I mean, it just broke my heart to see he has no one to express this to. His heart hurts. He never ever saw her again. He loved her so, so.
Right.
And I really believe, and I don't mean to say this in a strange way, but their dad, he was the only one that probably had the funds and the resources that could have really maybe gone and searched more for his daughter, but he didn't do it because he wasn't around, because he was busy with his other life. And then his mom was, poor, remarried to this, abusive stepdad who very much abused her. So she's limited. There she is limited. I'm just saying, Tab never got a shot to really try to figure out what happened to his sister, but the devastation was more to him than anyone, I feel. Well, obviously, the mother didn't do well either, but yeah. Tab did not do well. He did not do well with her loss at all.
Yeah. Do you think, I just have to ask, being that you said he was talking about her just 3 days before he had his heart attack, do you think this contributed to his death? The emotions of it.
I shouldn't have. I've always, I've always felt like he needed some peace, and the heart attack brought him the peace, because then he knew, and maybe he was with her. I don't, do we believe in the afterlife and everything? But I'm just saying, he finally had peace.
Right. And you're saying, you're saying, of course, it's my perception is that Tammy had a brother. It seems to me he died well before the average age that a man lives to as well.
Yes. And the sadness that her parents were very tortured by that loss, and how they never wanted to, they couldn't accept it. And then the brother, he too. And, I really can't, I don't want to say, but he had a lot of addictive problems. Mm-hmm. So it's like everybody's, wasn't going to turn out well for everybody to lose these people and never know what happened to them.
Right. I should ask, did you brought this up before, I need to ask you this. Did you two end up going like vacations to Florida to look around in the years you were together, or was that just talk, or what went on?
Yeah, it was just talk, but I'll tell you, yes, it was just talk, and I feel like so bad, but this would be us. I'm not kidding. We probably went down, and we went to the Gulf side. We didn't go over like Fort Lauderdale side, but we vacationed in the Gulf all the time. Probably went on, 13 vacations there. And we'd do it every time. That's how open we talked about her. We'd be laying in the lawn chairs, laying in the sun by the pool and on the beach, and I'd say, shouldn't we drive somewhere and go find her? I mean, shouldn't we figure her out? That's all. We didn't. I guess we didn't do what we said, but we said we were going to do it as our retirement, but we didn't get that because he passed away.
Well, it's tough. You want to do these things, but I can even say for disappearances that have happened much more recently than 1984 that it's hard for people to figure out what to do. Even if you get retired, this is not offense against you or any particular family out there. Anyway, certainly, given my experience, I think, this is what I'm trying to do with my consultations with people, trying to point them in the right direction of what can be done now in 2026. But just on your own, it's tough to figure out what could be done. Try to figure out, what can be done now.
The number one thing that he used to say to me was, we don't even know what entity to go to. We don't even know what, agents, we don't even know what we're doing. Who would we talk to? He would say that because, there is that guilt feeling that you would have. You're on vacation, you're in Florida, and you're not doing anything. You're not doing anything to find out what happened 35 years ago. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that's just what he was saying. We don't know where to go.
Right. I mean, even if, you have an unlimited cash flow or whatever, and you're gonna go out to Bimini and sniff around, or you're gonna maybe get some time with the Coast Guard and everything. It's maybe going to take some time to put together a plan that seems like it's going to be productive. If you're going to say, all right, well, the plane might have gone down here. If you could get maybe, for example, if you could get the paperwork that was done by the Coast Guard, the search grids and everything else, and how long they searched and everything. Okay, now you have what? Well, now what? What can be done now? Was there any, did the NTSB researches all plane crashes. Well, what did the NTSB do back in 1984? You might be able to get that paperwork, Tracy.
Yeah.
You might be able to get that. And that's not a crazy thought. Just to see what they did do and what the radar does say and everything. Probably would be easier to get than, let's say, any paperwork on a murder, an unsolved murder, which would, can still consider to be a open investigation. With this stuff being that it's the NTSB and it's classified as an incident, very well could be that you could get the paperwork for that. Something to think about. But even then, where do you go from there? But bringing this back to Tab, you did say he was tormented by this.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And I think you also spoke of Glynis's mother, who I guess also was tormented by this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
She just had it's so strange too, because I do have these periods in my life where I was involved with the family, but yet then I got, married to my first husband, and then kind of that all ended. But there was just these things that I remember chatting with Tab before I dated him or anything. Mm-hmm. And he was just saying, ever since Glynis disappeared, this is what she does. She goes to work, she comes home, she pours her glass of vodka, she does the splash of orange juice in it and drinks it until she falls asleep, and then she starts the next day all over again. That's just, he goes, ever since Glynis died, that's what she does. She has no other, activities.
Wow. Okay. And what about you? I mean, you, of course, knew her. And you and Tab did not get together at that time. You, like you said, you got married to someone, he got married to someone, and then you hooked up in 2009. Is this something that was, just be honest, was this something that continued to be on your mind, or was it kind of out of your mind, and then once you met back up with Tab, it, came into your mind again? What about for you?
No, for me, it's just strange. I mean, I went to college in Virginia, and I came back and went to Kent for my master's and all that. Everywhere I went, I told the story. Everywhere I went. Because people would, bring up stories about things that, were similar, like people, maybe disappearing and then finding them or whatever. But I was always like, Well, I have a girl that I went to high school that never was found.
Wow.
And we don't even know why she was on the airplane. When I would tell the story, I told it everywhere I went. It was just like, I think it happened, and it just never left my mind. Never left my mind.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly enough, when Tab and I had like our first date after us being divorced from our previous spouses, we had our first date. We were eating, Japanese food, and we just sat there and we talked all about Glynis. I mean, we talked all about just, can you believe how long it's been? And there is nothing. There is no way to know anything,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I liked that him and I were open about it, our very first date after 25 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Facts.
Well, I have to tell you, I feel very fortunate that I was able to track you down. I guess I got lucky, I guess, that you had a Facebook account and it had, of course, the Bernhard last name on it. That certainly helped, but that is what I do.
Yeah.
I track people down. And I feel so fortunate that you responded. I feel so fortunate.
I can't believe that when you called, that, some of those more initial bits of information that you shared, they seem more factual than like our little family stories.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was like shocking.
Yeah.
And that it's so weird when I hung up the phone with you. When I hung up the phone with you, I just, of course I called my parents.
Oh, did you?
And
okay.
I called my parents, and I was just like, there's no one to tell. There's no one to tell. There's somebody out there that is looking and researching and finding and knows more than we knew. And the story is, a little more technical. There's more technicality to the story than the plane dripping down off the radar and, maybe being a drug run.
Yeah.
I don't,
Well, it could have been. The problem we have is that we know at least one of the guys, and I have not looked up the two other guys. I'll probably do that before this episode comes out, just to add some background. But, the problem we have is that we know at least one person on that plane was involved in illegal activity.
I know, that's crazy. That is just crazy.
It's a problem. And
I ran this weekend. I ran into a girl who knew Glynis very well, who knew me, who knew all about, who knew us just through school. And I told her, there I am at my daughter's bridal shower, saying, "Do you want to hear something?" And I'm telling her about. Yeah. She goes, "That's amazing that you got that phone call." I said, "Yes."
Well, I'm happy to help. Certainly happy to help, and I realize that some of the information contradicts things you have thought for many years, but I'm hoping that this can put their disappearances back on the map, because just simply stated, there's no way that 6 people should go missing and they're not listed anywhere. That should just never happen. And I'm not trying to put that, it's not your fault. I'm not trying to put that in anybody's lap, but when 6 people go missing, you'd think that they would be listed on the federal database. They aren't.
Yeah.
They aren't.
That's right.
I don't know why. I don't have a good answer for you today. But, like I said, even I, who, I'm reading disappearance stories every day, even I came across this by accident. It was complete accident. And that shouldn't be. That should not happen. These people should be listed in a place that's easy to find and prominent.
Uh-huh.
So, but I feel so fortunate that I was able to talk to you and, give you some good information that, fills in at least a few of the blanks. Certainly.
Yeah.
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 Tracy, do you have any final words before we complete this interview?
Nope, I'm fine. I think you really talked it out.
Okay. All right. Well, I appreciate you being on this episode of Unfound.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. And that was my June 8th, 2026 interview with Tracy, sister-in-law of Glynis Bernhard. I thank her for joining me and all of you on this episode. As I told you last week, I will be making a map video for all of the disappearances featured in this Atlantic series. However, it will not be done until the series nears its end. That video will be on the Unfound YouTube channel. Okay, I'm going to use the summation to further, if not better, explain one of the main points covered in the interview. That would be mainly how I found these disappearances in the first place, and that will give me an opportunity to talk about another disappearance which may not get covered in this Atlantic series. After I'm done doing that, I will go over two very important points that I did not know when I conducted the interview just a few days ago. Both are certainly going to get your attention. Okay, how do you go about finding out about disappearances which aren't listed anywhere? I'll reiterate. None of these people, none of them, Glynis and the other 5, none of them are listed on NamUs. So how did I find out that these 6 people went missing? Well, it was kind of in a very roundabout way, and I'm going to be doing this off the top of my head. So please excuse me if I have some pauses, some ums, knows, things like that. Well, the way this series even got started, as you all know, I had a long time interest in the disappearances of Teresa Hickman and Angela Westbury. And of course, we went over their disappearances a few weeks ago, and we'll be talking about them next week when I have Coast Guard Investigative Service investigator Caleb King on. So you're going to get to hear a little bit more about Teresa and Angela and the investigation into their disappearances. But when I decided that I wanted to make this a series, that there was a possibility kind of just rolling around in my head, what was the first thing I did? Well, of course, I went to NamUs, and I know many of you have used NamUs. All I did was go to NamUs, put in the dates January 1st, 1980 to December 31st of 1989, and of course, a list came up. I then limited that search to Florida disappearances, and then I went by one, checking to see which of those people went missing off the coast of Florida. That's what I did. You can do that yourself. And from that list, I collected all those names, and that is how I ended up finding some of the people that you've already heard from and some people you will be hearing from in the next coming weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, who knows how long it's going to go. Well, one of those people on that list, her name is Diane Jenkins, D-Y-A-N, last name Jenkins. She was a young woman. I think she was originally from Kentucky or Tennessee, and you should know, as of the recording that I'm doing today, and I'm doing this recording on June 10th, of 2026. I've not been able to contact someone in her family. She has a sister who is proving to be, let's just say, evasive. But I'm still trying because I want to cover her disappearance. I want to talk to somebody in Diane's family. May not happen, but I still have some weeks to go. I got some time. So I found out about her disappearance from NamUs. And the first thing I've done with all of these disappearances, the next thing I did was I went to newspapers.com. I have an account there. It is probably singularly the most important subscription I have to do this podcast. I find it fascinating to go back and read about disappearances, what was said about them at the time. Fascinating to me. And of course, it gets the older the disappearance is, I guess you could say, the more fascinating the original information is to me. Of course, what you also find, a lot of these disappearances, not just in this series, but over the last 10 years, nothing was written about them at the time. That also is fascinating to me. So I found out about Diane Jenkins, and that she was in a plane very similar to the one that we talked about today, a Cessna 402. You can look it up on Wikipedia or wherever. And how she went missing, flying to the Bahamas and seemingly getting very close to her destination and then calling out that she was running out of fuel. She never arrived. Coast Guard went out to try to find her. Also, Bahama authorities tried to find her. All they found was this life raft that seemingly was connected to her plane. Somehow they were able to make the connection. But she and the plane itself never been found to this day. And it's written, a lot of articles written about this in 1981. Well, in doing some information, looking her up, trying to find out more information about her, I could not find a Diane Jenkins, D-Y-A-N, and then Jenkins. Well, went to Web Sleuths of all places, and someone on there managed to find out some years ago that actually her real name was not Diane Jenkins. It was Diane, but it was D-I-A-N-N-E, and then last name Kaywood, C-A-Y-W-O-O-D. So maybe, possibly, seemingly, Diane was using a fake name. So there's a big question. Now, maybe her married name, I could find no records of her being married. If I were to happen to talk to somebody in her family, maybe this would all get straightened out. But just be clear, she was known as Diane Kaywood, but she is listed as Diane Jenkins on NamUs. And she took off, never to be seen again. Once again, just like these 6 people. Well, I just limited the search on newspapers.com to 1981 for a while. And then I wanted to see, well, were there any follow-up articles about this disappearance, anything written later in 82, 83, 84, whenever, even into the 90s, even into the 2000s. And so I opened up the parameters a bit, the search parameters, and what do you know? Her name comes up in 1984 because at the time in 1981 when she went missing, she was dating Al Wharton, who, of course, we just discussed for this episode. We are discussing for this episode. She and he were a couple in 1981 when she went missing. And, of course, the reason his name came up in 1984 is because of this disappearance. This is how I found out about these disappearances, by looking up Diane Jenkins and her name coming up in relation. And I've already posted the article for all of you to read. You can find it in the Facebook group, the Unfound discussion group on Facebook. You can find it on the Facebook page. You can also go to theunfoundpodcast.com, the website. You will find the article on the page devoted to these disappearances there as well. Of course, if you don't have a newspapers.com account. I think it's very important. I've posted many articles regarding all of this for this particular week of 2026. So please read these articles. They provide a lot of very good background information. So that's how I found out about these 6 disappearances. And then it was working backward that I found out that Al Wharton was a disgraced Miami cop who got caught selling cocaine to undercover cop back around the same time that Diane went missing. Now, seemingly Diane was by herself. But you will see in those later articles what you won't find in the 1981 articles that you do find in the 1984 articles regarding Al Wharton and Glynis and their disappearances, is that it is believed by 1984, authorities had decided that Diane Jenkins / Diane Kaywood was actually doing a drug flight to the Bahamas when she went missing. It is believed she was flying out there for cocaine, marijuana, whatever it was. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. I'm just telling you what was reported over 40 years ago. But that is not clear in the 1981 articles, just so you know. So this is how I found out about these disappearances because, like I said, not on the Charlie Project, not on NamUs. It would not have even, I don't even know how you would go about necessarily. Maybe I could have gotten lucky some other way. But that is how this all happened. And I have urged Tracy to do what she can. She's not obligated to do so. But I've urged her to contact NamUs to see what she can do to get all of these people, even though she only knew 2 of them, to get all of them listed on NamUs, no matter what they were doing, no matter what their histories are. I don't care. They should be listed on NamUs. Because otherwise, I could have done this series and completely missed them. And I think you can see, I think these disappearances covering 6 people who went missing all at the same time. Very important to feature all of them. Just, I guess, looking back at Teresa and Angela's disappearances, that I thought it was just 2. Now we know it's at least 5, but 3 of those, the men, are not listed on NamUs. They should get listed on there too, no matter what their families might have thought of them. So that's how this episode came about. And then I was able to track down, of course, Tracy. Tab, unfortunately deceased. As she stated, I think he would have loved to have talked to me and been interviewed. You should know, as you also heard, Tammy's brother deceased. A lot of these people, family members, are deceased. One of the, was it George Sorren, who I'm going to talk about in a bit? I think he was the married one, or was it Gerald Lancaster? I don't have in my notes right here at this point. But I was thinking, well, maybe I could get to talk to his wife. She died like 20 years ago. There's just not a lot of people. You do not know how fortunate I feel that I got to speak to Tracy. I was able to track down anybody who could be connected to these disappearances, who knew at least one of these people. I just feel so lucky. And she was right there on Facebook, and she got right back to me. And as you could tell in her voice for the entire interview, she was very ecstatic to be able to talk about this because, of course, she lived with Glynis's brother Tab. Tracy and Tab were married. She knew all about this. She knew Glynis. And then some guy comes along like myself, who is ready to talk and is ready to publicize these disappearances and make sure these people, no matter what their backgrounds are, make sure that they're not forgotten. And so I'm happy to do it. So that's how that happened. Total luck. Let's now move on to the 2 points, 2 very big pieces of information that I discovered after I interviewed Tracy. And keep in mind, like I said, I'm doing this recording, this part of the episode, recording it on June 10th. And I just spoke to Tracy 2 days ago. And this is some of the additional information I discovered about Charles Sorren and Gerald Lancaster. Okay, this is also from newspapers.com, and I had to go back to 1975 to find this article. So 9 years before these 6 people went missing, including Charles Sorren, I give you this article. This is from the Tampa Tribune, February 17th, 1975. 9 years, once again, 9 years before the disappearances covered in this episode. The headline is, Search Begins for Plane, 2 Americans, and the dateline is San Juan, Puerto Rico. More than a dozen military and civilian aircraft searched the Eastern Caribbean yesterday for a twin-engine plane carrying 2 U.S. citizens missing on a flight from San Juan to St. Vincent in the Windward Islands, about 400 miles southeast of Puerto Rico. The U.S. Coast Guard said the St. Vincent-based Piper Aztec had not been heard from since it took off from San Juan about 7 a.m. Eastern Time Saturday. It had been expected to land at St. Vincent about 3.5 hours later. The owner and pilot of the missing plane was identified as Michael Trobert, 22 years old. I'll talk about him in a little bit. His passenger was Charles Sorren, 19 years old. Yes, the same Charles Sorren who went missing on March 31st, 1984. The Coast Guard said both men were U.S. citizens living on St. Vincent. No former U.S. addresses for the men were available. Trobert had brought the plane to Puerto Rico to have one of its engines repaired, the Coast Guard said. Involved in the search were 2 Coast Guard helicopters from Puerto Rico, 2 Coast Guard fixed-wing planes from the U.S. mainland, 2 U.S. Navy planes from Puerto Rico, 4 or 5 civil air patrol planes from Puerto Rico, and several private and government planes from eastern Caribbean islands, the Coast Guard said. Charles Sorren, at 19 years old, went missing once before. Now, of course, you may say, but wait a minute, he was on the plane in 1984. You're right. The problem is I could not find one article on newspapers.com or elsewhere of what the resolution was to these disappearances, because here's what I know. Charles Sorren is the same person who went missing, I'm sure of it, 100%, who was on the plane in 1984. In addition, this Michael Trobert, his full name is Gordon Michael Trobert, and he also lived well past 1975. And in fact, I'm going to read part of an article that was written about him in 1999. The problem we have is we don't know what happened here. Now, probably they were doing something illegal. But somebody sent out the word that they were missing, but we have no idea how Gordon Michael Trobert and Charles Sorren were found in 1975. And the reason, of course, Tracy and I didn't talk about this during the interview, I did not find this information until after I interviewed her. So Charles Sorren went missing before in a plane under similar circumstances. So we already have, of course, L. Wharton connected to Diane Jenkins / Diane Kaywood, who went missing under similar circumstances 3 years before this 6 went missing. And then going back to 1975, one of the people who went missing in 1984 went missing under similar circumstances in 1975. I'm now going to read part of an article. It's a very long article that has to do with a guy whose name was Joe Pegg, who was very involved in drug trafficking, flying here, flying there, 1970s, 1980s. And the article, it's actually about him. And it was in the South Florida Sun-Sentinel, May 23rd of 1999, so full 15 years after the disappearances that we are featuring today. But in that article, about halfway through, as I've just spoke, of course, Michael Trobert, who went missing on a flight in 1975, well, his name pops up in this article. And it's about halfway through, and I'll read it. Gordon Trobert, who is Gordon Michael Trobert, who is Michael Trobert from the 1975 article, was a Pompano Beach pilot who was paid $5,000 to $10,000 for each of the 50 to 60 surveillance flights he flew for Joe Pegg. The smuggler had so many boats running on the water during a typical unloading operation that it looked like McHale's Navy from the sky, Trobert said. So Trobert himself was interviewed for this article in 1999. So once again, he goes missing in 1975, but we have no idea how he and Charles Sorren ended up coming back to civilization. I'm guessing there's paperwork out there somewhere from the Coast Guard or whatever. But as I sit here on June 10th, 2026, I don't know. So there you go. Gordon Trobert, who was connected to Charles Sorren, both involved in drug trafficking. Of course, we also know about Al Wharton, corrupt cop, who was on this flight as well on March 31st of 1984. I'm now going to give you the other mind-blowing piece of information, and that has to do with Gerald Lancaster. All right, this article is from like a week later. It seems that Gerald Lancaster was originally from North Carolina. And so his family, I guess, wanted to wrap up the affairs pretty quickly. So they already had an obituary for him and everything else, and I'm going to read this to you. Now, I don't know about Gerald Lancaster's criminal background. We know about Al's. We know about Charles's. But there's something else about this article that is going to catch your attention. And it says, Nahunta native, that must be a town in North Carolina, Nahunta, Nahunta native in air collision. That is the headline for this article. It's dated, I think, April 6th of 1984, just a week after these people went missing. A native of the Nahunta community was aboard a plane the FAA, Federal Aviation Administration, confirmed Monday, was involved in a mid-air collision off the Bahamas Saturday morning. Gerald Lancaster, 31, son of Charles and Joyce Lancaster, was one of 6 passengers aboard the twin-engine plane en route from Fort Lauderdale to Bimini, his family said. His sister-in-law, Mrs. Margaret Lancaster, said the FAA said the plane was in a collision 22 miles from the Bahamas with another plane coming from the Bahamas. The plane, which left Fort Lauderdale at 8:30 a.m., was reported missing after failing to arrive in Bimini at 9:20 a.m. as scheduled. Mrs. Lancaster said her brother-in-law called Friday and advised he was going on a flight with 2 other pilots to take 3 women employees and leave them for a vacation in the Bahamas. A memorial service will be held Saturday at 4 p.m. at Seymour Funeral Home Chapel with the Reverend officiating. Lancaster, formerly a pilot with an air service in Jackson, Tennessee, was a captain with Associated Air Services and was a 1978 graduate of Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in Daytona Beach, Florida. He was a 1970 graduate of Charles Aycock High School in Pikeville and was an air traffic controller in the U.S. Air Force from 1972 to 76. Lancaster was the oldest son in his family and wanted to fly since he was a young boy. His father said that when he was 12 years old, he'd watch planes fly over their farm in Pikeville and say, "That's what I want to do someday, Daddy." In addition to his parents, Lancaster is survived by 2 sisters, Phyllis Radford of Garner and Judy Clark of Pikeville, and 3 brothers, Gary Lancaster, Ben Lancaster, and Charles Lancaster. The family asked that donations be made to the tornado victims. I guess they had some tornadoes there around that time. And yes, I'm going to try to do what I can to find any of these siblings who have a pretty good chance, I think, some of them, of still being alive. So here we are a week later, an article for the death of Gerald Lancaster. They just thought right away, 6 days later, they already thought he was dead. And it says that the reason these 6 people couldn't be found is due to an air collision. And I want to state, according to the article, that the FAA confirmed this. FAA, it says right in the first paragraph, the FAA confirmed Monday that Gerald and the others were involved in a mid-air collision off the Bahamas. So, if you're confused, don't feel bad. I do this as my job for 10 years now. I'm confused too. So to wrap this up, what does this all mean? It's hard to say. This is most likely, of course, it's an article that was written very early, and of course, the NTSB or whoever, they were still searching probably a week later. But what I would say is, overall, the disappearances of these 6, most likely a very run-of-the-mill, straightforward plane accident, which happens every day all over the world. Probably, seemingly, allegedly. This is what it is. The people responsible for this flight, I should say the people responsible for this flight, essentially the men on the flight. I don't think any of the women had any flying certificates or pilots. These men, I'm going to guess at least 2 of them were known to be lawbreakers. They had taken risks in the past. In fact, one of them even went missing once. One was a disgraced cop and had taken risks in the past, and the business they were involved in encouraged cutting corners to get around safety and the law. Yet, this doesn't explain why no wreckage was found. This doesn't explain why no bodies were found, no pieces of an airplane. Nothing. It doesn't explain, of course, also why early reports, even from the FAA, were saying that there was a collision between 2 planes. I guess what I'm saying here is that it very well may be that, as I stated in the episode, could they have just gotten too high? Those Cessnas can go up to 20,000 feet, but the passengers and the pilots need oxygen or everybody will pass out. That seems like a very plausible idea. The problem is, you're going to be hearing the next weeks about people, at least one guy who was certainly not breaking the law, and he went missing too in a same kind of plane, going to the same area. And he was only at 7,000 feet, where it's easy to breathe. So I'm going to leave you with this. I cannot rule out, it's most likely that this is just a one plane crash, no collision or anything, but I cannot rule out they went off radar because they said they were headed to Bimini, but they were actually headed somewhere else. Just like kind of what we might think regarding Teresa Hickman and Angela Westbury's disappearances. And that's the program. If you'd like to hear and read more of my in-depth analysis into the disappearance of a group I am calling the Fort Lauderdale 6, please go to patreon.com/Unfound Podcast. Sign up to partake in the Unfound blog. Until then, I leave the public theorizing up to you. I'm Ed Dunsel, and you've been listening to Episode 5 of Unfound's coverage into disappearances that occurred off the Atlantic coast of Florida during the 1980s.